So in today's episode, we are going to cover a little bit about living in Florida. We get a lot of questions about Florida, and we have had some pretty fun experiences. One of those is including the nude beach. So we are going to dive into that today. But before we get started, I guess we should just start with why Florida and where in Florida did we start? I personally don't have very much experience in Florida prior to living there. Did you have any?
Nope, been there a few times. I was stationed there in Pensacola, but you and I, we of course moved to South Florida. Pensacola is in the panhandle of Florida on the Gulf Coast, pretty close to the Alabama border right there. And but you and I landed in Fort Lauderdale a few years ago, and I had visited the area a few times and just absolutely loved it, and had thought that, okay, like this would be a place that I'd want to come to at some point. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to get out there in March or April of 2021 or whenever it was. And, it was so much fun for us where, we lived right, if anybody's ever been to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Fort Lauderdale A1A right there on the beach, we lived real close to there and would spend a lot of time going up and down the beach and having fun. And running, like one of the fun things for me was getting up in the morning really early because I'd always try to get my runs in before 10 a.m. because by noon, it's busy down there.
Yeah.
And so if you get your runs in before noon, the sidewalks were still just mostly people exercising. And the roads weren't as busy, maybe some crazy ass cyclists going through, but
and it gets busy in Fort Lauderdale. That is the central of where everyone comes to visit, vacation. Everyone comes right there to A1A, so it does get pretty wild.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Oh, I was just saying that that there in Fort Lauderdale, we live close to the beach, and we also would go to Haulover Beach. We were fortunate enough to go a few times at least. And that is the beach there at Haulover Beach Park, I think is what they call it, in North Miami, and it's a nude beach. So it's kind of strange going there for the first time.
We went to the wrong place the first time.
Yeah. Luckily, we didn't get naked there. We were like, wait a second.
If you've ever been to that area where it's Miami, and if you've ever been in Miami, there's so much Miami. There's a lot of it everywhere, and that area, we actually went to the regular beach first that was further south in Miami, and we realized real quick when we walked out there, okay, there's not anyone else out here. We're probably in the wrong place.
I think the beach we first went to was right there in Sunny Isles. There's a bridge.
Yeah.
On, I guess that's A1A, and you go over the bridge, and there's a Ritz-Carlton there on the south side. I think there's a Jetties there, but there's a dog beach right there, and that's where we first parked. As a matter of fact, you park next to the skate park.
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
And I remember seeing people on their skateboards and bikes, and they had just this whole concrete thing where everybody's skating in and stuff.
So then we had to figure out, okay, where do we need to go to get to the right Haulover? Because we were ready to go. I think I just had a cover-up thing on, no bathing suit underneath. I was ready to go. And so we found the real Haulover inlet part for that and parked there. They actually had these tunnel things where the parking lot's on the other side. I thought that was pretty cool that Florida was all these tunnels to get traffic to and from, where they needed to go, foot traffic. And so we found, what were they? Were they yellow beach lifeguard stands or pink ones?
They're
pink ones on the nude beach. So when we found the pink ones, we knew that was the place.
Yeah. It's and you stay on the north side of the fence right there, and yeah, it's a great time. We had a really good time.
So when we first walked out there, there was only like a couple of older people. I guess we came and sat on the older side of the nude beach. And I remember when we walked out there, like it was like, oh, are we supposed to be doing this? Are we supposed to be taking our clothes off? And once you do, and like we ended up meeting very like amazing people at the nude beach at Haulover, and like it is the most judgment free. That's the most instant thing that we get from people is like, oh my God, I could never sit out at a nude beach. And I'm like, man, you guys think that, but when you do it, it's like so freeing, and like no one's there like caring about what you're doing. Like they're all there to soak up some sun. Same reason
100%.
you're there, relax. Like in my opinion, it's the prettiest part of all of the beaches down in that area. Like the most amazing. I just remember how like relaxing it would be to heat up on the sand and then to go down into the water and just like float a little bit, and like the water just felt so good and felt so good on your skin and your hair, and then you'd come out and lay out again. Like it was just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And like you talk about, first of all, I'm not trying to convince anybody to go.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't want to go, then don't go, don't give a shit. But like there's a lot of people who would like to go, and and one of the questions I got anytime like we post a picture or anything about Haulover or anything like that, people are always concerned like dude, how do you not get an erection? And like with all these, because, and then there's a misconception too that like the nude beach is only like fat old dudes, and it's like, don't get me wrong, there's fat old dudes, but like there's also like beautiful women out there who are just sunbathing, and just hanging out doing whatever, and so there are like very pretty women out there, but the thing is like no one out there, and I shouldn't say no one because there's always the exception, right? But 99.9% of the people out there are just out there to have a good time.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, like we met Flamingo Steve, who we've talked about.
Flamingo Steve.
He's like the mayor of Haulover Beach. And
we dubbed him that, and everyone else.
And and through him we met some other people, and we ended up meeting this dude Todd, and Todd is an excellent guy, and he'd sit out there and smoke his cigars with like his hair was always just like
eyebrows
perfect. It's just like perfect, right? Like the Rolex and shit. And he must be from like, was he from Philly or some shit, Todd? He spoke with like a northeastern accent. I don't know where he's
from. And they all gave him shit for getting his eyebrows done.
Yeah, he'd be like, I have to go to the salon. But he is a super nice guy. And
awesome.
We met our realtor through him. And because it's, man, like one thing for sure is in South Florida, it's kind of hard to find people to like just do a job.
It's extremely hard.
Because everybody's want to, I guess, just maybe hang out at the beach and not take life too seriously, and which is fine by me.
Yeah.
But when you have time sensitive things to do, it's like moving. Like it's kind of nice to have someone who's more tactful. So luckily we found a realtor, Brooke, and she is just absolutely the best.
She was amazing.
The best realtor, that I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and so. It's just funny how all those connections and it like Brooke, we didn't meet her at Haulover, but we met her through Todd, and it's pretty funny how.
And she's one of our good friends, her and her husband, and like very grateful for the people that we met on this journey that we've been on, because just like that, like Brooke's one of our friends, and she's an amazing human being, and probably one of the top friends that I know as far as like being positive, being driven, talking about growth. Like Brooke is up there, and I think that's also a misconception in the space and everything as well, is that like you can meet people like that through genuine connections like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love Brooke. She's great.
Yeah. So Haulover was amazing. I think even one time you had some tarpon circle you up in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty wild.
That was wild, but that was pretty awesome. Haulover was amazing for us, and Fort Lauderdale, I think, was amazing for us in general. When we first went out there, we spent a lot of time, was it in Dania Beach, where we stayed at first?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, like, Dania Beach was really cool to be able to experience a lot of the.
I like Dania Beach.
Yeah, I did. I liked the vibe of it. And when you'd go in certain areas, especially where Brooke lived, I believed Jewish communities were everywhere. So it was really cool to see, like, what is it on Sundays or whatever day it is that they don't use like anything, and you see them all walking, and like it was really cool to experience. There are a lot of different cultures down in that Miami area, Fort Lauderdale area. So it was really cool. That was one of the things that I loved, was being able to meet people from all over.
Yeah, I think that's the cool part about like going through just kind of big cities in general is like getting to see the different. Of course, like each city has its own vibe, you know, independent of others. But then there's also like the cultural centers, you know, like, you know, for instance, there's most big cities have a Chinatown, right? Like, I went to Chinatown in San Francisco 5 years ago or whatever it was, 6, 7 years ago, and it was just really cool to, it's like, like you're in San Francisco and everything's, just like quote unquote normal. And then all of a sudden, bam, you're in this section where like all the writings in Chinese and like there's like true like Chinese culture there, and all the restaurants and stores, and it's really cool to go in and just be able to like pop in and see somebody's culture,
Right,
and,
right.
and of course, like South Florida, like Miami, there's a big Cuban presence there. Many Cubans, of course, have migrated to Florida over the past however many decades, and the Cubans. We ended up, after we left Fort Lauderdale, we ended up moving down to the Florida Keys, and down there where we were staying at. We met this dude who worked there. His name was Pedro, and Pedro,
yes.
and Pedro, like he looked black, like an African American, but he was not black. He was Cuban, Cuban American, and he spoke Spanish. That was his first language, and he would bring you coconuts, and to where, because you love going around getting the coconuts and getting the fresh coconut water out of them.
Because fun fact, everyone in the Keys throws out their coconuts. Coconuts are like a nuisance in the Keys.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
Yeah, you want to protect your property and the things around you, and when there's palm trees everywhere with coconuts. So I would try to snag as many as I could, and Pedro would come over, and not only would he bring me coconuts that he found, but he would also open them up with his machete for me.
Yeah, and he said he came to the United States on a raft. He is like 30. He named exact. I can't remember. He's like 34 years ago, or however many years, and he is like, however he said it took him 7 days or 10 days. I can't remember. And he spoke about it, and just how crazy that adventure was for him, but he said he wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah,
and
he said I'd do it again.
He'd do it again, yeah. And yeah, it's great to I think that's a great part about immigrant culture here in the United States as well, is like we as and by we I speak for the Americans who are like generations in, right? Like we're now accustomed to the milk and honey that the United States produces, but for somebody like Pedro or somebody, immigrating from Venezuela or, somewhere else where there's not nearly the opportunity, they're very thankful to be here and understand what life can be like on the worst end of the stick, if you will, and also understanding that like this place provides for the most part, equal opportunity, not equal results, right? But just to have a fair shake at things, to be able to go out and be able to work for a living, and to be able to buy a little truck like Pedro had, and to have a place that you can go call home, without the fucking government coming in and taking everything that was once yours. So it was really nice being down there, and you know, like there in Tavernier, they had that Cuban breakfast place. It was called
Oh,
like
yes. Oh,
El
I forgot
Sunrise,
about that.
something I
Yes.
can't remember. They like they didn't speak English in there, you know. And but this and like the first time I went in there, they had the Cuban coffees, and you know, Cuban coffee is just like espresso and sugar, you know, whatever, mixed up. And but they usually serve them in just like little tiny, like small little shot glass type looking things, whatever, little cups, and. I told the lady, I was like, I want a big one. And she's like, what? You know, I'm like, she tried to get like a small cup for like the big. I'm like, no, 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 no. She was like, pointed to it. I was like, yes, that one. She's like, it was like, I don't know, like a 20-ounce cup or whatever it is. Filled up the whole thing, and it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
was
the next
zinging for a
time,
day.
I was well saying the next time you came in, there was someone else working the checkout,
Yeah.
and you had asked, because they barely speak
Yeah.
English, you had asked like big, you know, the big espresso, and he was like very confused until she came over and was like, no, no, no,
He
this
really
dude's
wants
crazy.
that one. Yeah.
He really wants this.
It's really that one he wants, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I forgot about the vibe in Fort Lauderdale was definitely different than the vibe in the Keys, and they both had their perks. I feel like Fort Lauderdale is a very busybody vibes. Like everyone's kind of busy going. Once the sun comes up, that's it. People are like moving, going, working out, working, doing things, producing. In the Keys, it's more of a laid back feel.
People were fishing and drinking.
People are chilling in the Keys.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, there's only one road in and one road out, so traffic would sometimes be a nuisance, but it never was like hurried traffic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like Houston traffic or Fort Lauderdale traffic.
yeah.
Jesus. But it was very like just a chill, and like people will let you in because they know it's going to take 10 minutes to get down the road. So the vibes were very different, and it was very funny going from that extreme and then going to the Keys where there's like hardly anything going on.
Yeah, it was. I remember being in Fort Lauderdale, like driving and like wishing I was in Houston traffic, like because the thing is there, you know, like you know, in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, like, and people who live there, people who've driven there know this, like, it's a free for all, like traffic signs and lights. Those are merely like suggestions.
Yeah.
And people like may follow them, or you may just be sitting at a red light and somebody might do a U-turn right in front of you as you're at the red. I mean, it's like, you know, or all of a sudden you might have a motorcycle go past you doing like 200 on I-95 right there.
We would have to play like jazz music in
Yeah.
the car just to stay.
I forgot about that.
Especially because we never really drove anywhere, but one place that we did drive was Haulover. Well, when you want to go to Haulover, you have to drive, if you're in Fort Lauderdale, you know, you have to drive south down to Miami. So like we would hit you would already know when you were hitting that like city, and it
Yeah.
would stress you out. Yeah, we ended up getting a dash cam on the car because we were like, no one believes us. We need to catch this stuff on camera.
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale's definitely like I want to say it's kind of like a free-for-all. Like you don't really see the cops around doing much unless there's like some big shit that's
No.
like happening, you
If
know?
you see the cops, they're in helicopters above,
Yeah, that's
like chasing somebody.
Exactly. They're never
Like remember that time, like when we first moved there, like there was this chase and something happened. There was like 4 helicopters in the sky, and they had like this perimeter in the sky, and there was cops, and we're like, what in the
Other
fuck
than that,
is
like
going on?
you never see tickets being given like
No.
for speeding and shit. So
No,
let me,
although I did have a Fort Lauderdale, the parking enforcement people write me a freaking ticket when I was legally parked. When I was parked in a legal parking spot, right at right off of A1A in Fort Lauderdale, behind the what hotel is that? The W right there.
the W.
There's North Birch Road, and there's like Bay View, or I can't
What
remember.
was
I
that
can't recall.
road?
But right there there's a 4-way intersection, and there's stop signs on each side. And on the road that goes to and from A1A, there's parking spots on the side that are like cut into the sidewalk. Like the sidewalk is like indented.
Right.
And then there's parking spots where they've come and they've painted on the freaking pavement right there,
Yeah.
yellow or white, whatever color stripes. And I was parked on the one closest to the stop sign. And I was not parked over the line. I was not parked behind the line. My tires weren't touching the curb. I was parked in the parking spot. And like the next day I go out there and there's this thing on my windshield and it's a citation. And I'm like, what is going on? And they had cited me for parking too close to a stop sign. Yes, because I was parked within like however many feet. So like I call the people. I'm like, okay, like if I'm wrong, whatever, I'll just pay it.
Yeah.
But I call and I'm like, and I try to tell the lady because I took pictures.
Yeah.
And I try to tell the lady, which she was actually very nice. And I'm like, like I was parked in a parking spot. Like this is y'all designated this parking spot, not this.
I just parked here.
I just parked here. And so I ended up getting that thing removed and dropped, but it wasn't because I was parked within. There was some technicality. I can't remember what it was. That I don't remember if it's because I had DV plates at the time.
I was about to say.
Or there was
I think
something, and she ended up removing the thing, but it wasn't. She wasn't like, oh, because she also when they do she had a picture of it as well that the officer took when they wrote me the citation, so she could see, and she was like, no, well you're still. I'm like, that's a parking spot.
Yeah.
And she's like, well I understand that, but anyways, it was fucking mind blowing, and I'm like, how can you designate a parking spot? That would be like, setting the speed limit at 55 and then a cop coming and pulling you over for doing 50 and saying that, oh, the speed limit's now 45 because of some reason. It's like, but it's 55 because you said it.
I don't care what the sign says.
Yeah, exactly so.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale is that thing is like a beast of its own. There was so much that was always happening in Fort Lauderdale, always, between the homeless people and the shops around there and the people that we would see. Fort Lauderdale was definitely, it was pretty amazing. And all the rain too. I don't think we got as much rain in the Keys, but the rain in Fort Lauderdale was amazing. Those lightning storms that I know photographed a little bit of, that was some of the, we lived on a higher floor in this condo. And so the panoramic view that you would see of this, I call it this valley that we were in, when those lightning storms would roll in, holy cow, they were amazing. They were beautiful. I had never, seriously never seen anything like it before.
Yeah, it is interesting that you mentioned the rain. It's in Fort Lauderdale. They get 60-something inches per year they average. But then down in the Keys, it's I don't know. I looked. I don't remember, it's 30 or 40 inches or whatever it is.
Wow.
It's a significant drop. They don't get near the amount of rain. And I thought it'd be just the opposite. I thought that you're on these tiny little islands out there and, you see the storms.
Yeah.
You see the storms coming in from the Gulf, but it's just nothing ever really materializes. So I'm sure there's people listening right now that are meteorologists that live down there that are like, oh, I understand that, but I don't know why that is.
Even the people at the sandbar in Isla Mirada, that sandbar page that I'm a part of, they'll even be like, look at the rain coming in, guys, and they'll just hold steady at the sandbar because they know it's just going to blow right through and be done. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, but I remember one time I was driving, I don't recall if you were with me or if I was going to see the moon pies down in Key West, but I think it's Sugarloaf Key. Right before you get into Key West, there's a bunch of big channels, and there was this freaking gnarly storm that was rolling in. I was driving into Key West, and all the boats are off the water except one, and it was this little bay boat, and I could see this guy coming in, and you could tell he's in this 20-foot Carolina skiff looking boat, he has this thing floored and he's trying to go as fast as he can. And, it's just the contrast of the storm behind him. I won't forget that view. But yeah, it can, for the mariners or anybody that goes on the water, you do not want to get stuck in a storm at all. It's bad.
That would be scary, especially out there in the Keys where you just don't know.
Yeah.
And I feel like the channels are different. The Keys, the boating channels, or I don't know what you call them specifically, but I feel like where we have highways here, the Keys, their highways are on the water. You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's so much activity out there, and then like, they are different in the sense of that once you get to like Isla Morada, past Isla Morada, like. You have like the Gulf of Mexico on one side and like the Atlantic Ocean on the other. So you have these two different competing massive bodies of water that, pull the tide, and that tide's moving through there. Like I remember when we first moved down there at Fort Lauderdale, and we went to Tavernier to go visit, and I went wade fishing, and I had went down all the way to like Long Key or somewhere, I don't remember where it was. Maybe even closer to Marathon, but I went wade fishing somewhere down there, and like I woke up really early, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and drove, and when I got in the water, like I could feel, I'm only in like knee deep water, eventually probably getting up to my waist, but like you could feel the current.
Right.
And like, but I'm not standing in a channel or anything where there would be like any fast moving current. I was just like I was on the Atlantic side, but just in the open water, and it was just like the water was sucking, you could feel it. So that's why, produces tons of good fishing, and I miss it. I miss being down there.
I miss Florida a lot too. People always ask me that. They're like, Florida? I'm like, yeah, I miss Florida a lot.
Yeah.
A whole lot. Maybe we'll be back. You never know.
Well, anyways, Haley, I think that's going to wrap it up for this third episode of the Vibing Kind podcast. If you want to grab some of these magnets or these stickers right here, these nice little holographic looking stickers, Vibing Kind, nice and clean cut. So this is a magnet. And then the stickers right here. Head to our Twitter page, follow along right there at Vibing Kind, and we'll be posting announcements on how you can pick up some free stickers. We just want to get them in your hands on your water bottles like Haley did here. So I think that looks pretty cool. So
yeah. All right. Well, we can't wait to talk with you guys next time for episode 4. Until then, vibe kind.
See ya.